In this video today, we're going to be talking about the law of cosines. There are three multiple variations for the law of cosines. They're given here. You really only have to focus on one, as all three are interchangeable. What you want to look for is, though, typically with law of cosines, you're only given one angle. So if we stick with this first equation, we'll always want to call our angle A, and directly across from angle A must be leg A. Labeling the other sides is arbitrary. So just know that across from angle B is going to be leg B, and across from angle C is going to be leg C. Now everything else should fit right into our equation. So if we want to find the value of x here, then that is leg A. So we could say x squared equals b squared plus c squared. Well, anytime you have a lowercase letter, you're referencing the leg. So b squared would be 16 plus c squared, that would be 28, minus 2 times b times c. So here we'll say 16 times 28. And then we'll multiply this by the cosine of angle A. So I'll bring this over here so we have a little bit more room. So we'll multiply by the cosine of angle A, which is 127 degrees. Think about this. The overall objective is just to get the value of x. So here I want to think, okay, well, I want x by itself. Well, how would I go from x squared to x? You would take the square root. So here, what I'm going to have is a really long square root sign. So here, let me get my ruler and we'll extend this out. So I have the square root of all of this. So this is going to be 16 squared plus 28 squared minus 2 times 16 times 28 times the cosine of 127. And that's it. You've solved for x. Now, if we want approximation on this, we can put that in our calculator. So here, if you want the square root, you have to hit second and then your x squared key. And now we'll type this whole thing in. So we'll say 16 squared plus 28 squared. We'll subtract 2 times 16 times 28 times the cosine of 127. Now that's it. We hit enter, and there's our solution. That's all you have to do for the law of cosines. So here we should be getting 39.7. So x is going to be approximately 39.7 inches. So that's all you have to do. Finding a leg length with law of cosines is very, very easy. Once you plug everything into your formula, the calculator can pretty much go from there. The only math we're really going to have to do is when we're looking for an angle. So let's try a few more. So here we have this triangle with 36 degrees. So remember, we're always going to call our angle angle A. And directly across from angle A is leg A. It doesn't really matter how you label the other sides. So just know that across from angle B will be leg B, and across from angle C will be leg C. So I'm going to rewrite our rule just so we can get practice memorizing that. So that would be a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times the cosine of angle A. Now, all we have to do is plug our information in. A squared we know is x. So x squared equals b squared. This is 25 plus c squared, 12 minus 2 times 25 times 12 times the cosine of angle A, which in this problem is 36 degrees. Now, just like problem 1, we want the value of x. Here, it's set up so that x is squared. Well, in order to solve for x, we're just going to take the square root. So here, I'll get my ruler, and then we'll extend this whole thing out. Now, you don't have to write all of this down because you know it's all going in the calculator anyway, but we'll just set it up for note purposes. So 25 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 25 times 12, and this is times cosine of 36. So I'll pull up my calculator, second x squared, that brings up my radical. 12 squared plus 25 squared minus 2 times 12 times 25 times the cosine of 36. So here we should be getting 16.8. Now you'll notice that here in our notes, I did 25 squared plus 12 squared. Remember that addition is commutative. It really doesn't matter in what order you add these. It's the same over here when you have 2 times b times c. Multiplication is also commutative. You're going to get the same product when you multiply these. So how you type them in the calculator doesn't really matter. So our answer, x, is going to be approximately 16.8. So we'll do one more looking for the leg. So we already have our triangle labeled. So here you have angle C and you have this leg. So our rule here could be C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2 times A times B times the cosine of angle C. So here, this was the third version of our triangle. If the sides aren't labeled, I would always call the angle, whatever angle you're given, angle A. You could even do that here. Like just because it's written SC doesn't mean you have to call it C. We could simply erase and say, okay, well, here's the angle we're given. Let's call that angle A, and we'll call X, we'll call this leg A. And then your other two sides could be B and C. You're going to get the exact same answer. So we'll just use what they gave us. So here, since they said C, A, and B, we'll do the same. So C squared is going to equal side A squared. So remember, directly across from angle A is going to be leg A, and directly across from angle B is going to be leg B. So C squared is going to equal A squared. So here this would be 11.5 squared plus 22 squared minus 2 times the legs times the cosine of angle C. So in this case, that would be 88 degrees. And then just like prior problems, we want the value of C, we want the value of the leg. So we're just looking for the square root. All right, and since I'm on my surface, I can do this fancy little thing here. We're just going to take this and we're going to copy it, and then we're going to paste it. Look at there. And now I'll take it and I'll put it under my square root. So we'll do this on the calculator, second x squared, and we'll type this in. So we have 11.5 squared plus 22 squared minus 2 times 11.5 times 22 times the cosine of your angle, and in this case that was 88. So here we should be getting 24.5. So the value of C here is going to be 24.5. That's pretty much it. Finding leg lengths with cosine, very, very easy. Where it requires just a little bit more math is going to be when we're looking for an angle. So that'll be in a situation like this. So we'll call this angle A, and we'll just finish labeling A, B, and C. So across from angle A is going to be leg A. Across from angle B will be leg B. Across from angle C is leg C. Now, the rules do not change. So we still have A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2 times B times C times the cosine of angle A. We're still going to plug it in. We're just not going to have a value for cosine here. So A squared, we now have a measurement. So this would be 10 squared equals B squared plus C squared. And then the value of A is X here. So in this problem, we're going to be trying to get cosine X by itself. So let's go ahead and write out what we know. We know that 10 squared is 100. We know that 13 squared plus 11 squared is going to be 290. We know that 2 times 13 times 11 is going to be 286. And this will be times the cosine of X. Now, the trap here that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to say, oh, well, this is easy. 290 minus 286, well, that's just going to be 4. So this should be 100 equals 4 cosine X. Okay, here's why this is a problem. You have to remember cosine X has to be looked at like it was a function. So let's say if I had this problem, if I had 290 minus 286 y. Let's treat cosine like it were a variable. Could you subtract here and say the answer is 4y? No, you couldn't. These are two separate things, right? You can't combine these. So what I'm going to have to do is solve here, and I'm going to treat this as though it were a variable. So if I made this problem simpler and I said, okay, what if I had 10 equals 29 minus 28y? And I said, let's solve for y. The first thing you would do is move the 29. So that's what we're going to do here in this problem. We're going to subtract 290 from each side. So 100 minus 290 is going to give me negative 190. This equals negative 286 times cosine of X. Well, we just said before, we want cosine X by itself. So now we're here, and we can divide. And we could get rid of the coefficient in front of cosine of X. So we could divide by 286. So now I have a negative over a negative gives you a positive. So I have 190 divided by 286 equals cosine of X. Now here you want X by itself because we want the value of the angle. We don't want cosine of the angle. So you have to think, well, cosine is a function. So you can't just move it, erase it. We'd have to reduce it to 1. And the way you reduce a function to 1 is you multiply by its inverse. So if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. So here, the value of X is going to equal inverse cosine of 190 divided by 286. So on my calculator, I can clear these. To get inverse cosine, you have to hit second cosine. And to get our fraction, we're going to hit math. We're going to hit left and then enter. And we're going to say 190 over 286. And there's going to be our angle, which is approximately 48.4 degrees. So this did require a little bit more work, but you treat it just like you're solving an equation. So once you square your numbers, all you're really doing is moving your constant. So in this case, I was moving the 290, and then you're dividing by your coefficient. And then when you get down here, in order to eliminate the cosine or reduce it to 1, you have to multiply by your inverse. So let's try another one like this where we're solving for an angle. So here we'll call this angle A. That makes this leg A. I can call this angle B, angle C, leg B, leg C. So now when I plug this into my formula, I have A squared, which is 17, equals B squared plus C squared minus 2 times B times C. And this will be times the cosine of angle A, which here is X. So we're going to go ahead and multiply these out. 17 squared is 289. 18 squared is 1,224. Oh, excuse me. That's 18 squared plus 30 squared. And then 2 times 18 times 30, this is going to give me 1,080. And this is times the cosine of x. So now we're right back here to, it almost looks just like a two-step equation. So really what we need to do is move this constant out front and then divide by our coefficient. So here I'll subtract the 1,224. And this is going to give me negative 935. We want cosine x by itself, so we're going to divide by the coefficient in front. So here we'll divide by negative 1,080. Now a negative over a negative gives you a positive, so 935 divided by 1,080 is going to equal cosine x. And as we've said before, to reduce cosine, since it is a function, to reduce it to 1, you are going to have to take the inverse. So x here should equal cosine inverse of 935 over 1,080. Second cosine, and we'll say 935 divided by 1,080. So our angle here should be 30 degrees. So if I came back here, x should be 30 degrees. All right, and we'll do one last example. So they've labeled it TSR. So with our variables, we could just go through and just say A, B, and C. So we'll make this leg A, leg B, leg C. So this gives us 14 squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2 times B times C times the cosine of angle A So 14 squared is 196. 9 squared plus 6 squared is 117. 2 times 9 times 6 is going to give us 108. And now we're right back to our two-step equation. So here I can subtract 117 from each side. $196 minus 117 gives us 79. We know we want cosine by itself, so we will have to divide by the coefficient that's in front. So here we'll divide by negative 108. So we have 79 divided by 108 equals cosine x. And as we talked about, if you want to reduce cosine to 1, so I'll take this and move it over, you must multiply it by its inverse. So the inverse cosine of 79 divided by negative 108, this is going to equal the value of x. Here, and I'll say 79 divided by negative 108. And here I got 137. Now, if yours come up and said syntax error, make sure that you're hitting your negative. Negative is down here to the left of enter. Do not hit subtract. All right. That's our examples of law of cosine. So looking for side length is very, very easy. You just take the square root of your expression, and then looking for the measure of the angle does require a little bit more math, but it only reduces down to become a two-step equation. All right, I hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, give it a like, hit the subscribe button, and then you can leave a comment if you have any questions.